Recently, a coworker and I were assigned to work together on a major project. The responsibilities were clearly divided. I was in charge of analyzing the data, processing the numbers, and fixing system errors. She was responsible for presenting the work and communicating with the boss. For nearly a month, I was staying at the office until 10 to 11 o'clock at night, almost every day, checking every single number one by one. And I truly believed I was doing my part well. But one day, I heard from another coworker in the department that she had privately told the boss and a few other colleagues that I worked slowly, often made mistakes, and lacked responsibility, so she had to carry almost all of the important parts herself. Meanwhile, she had never mentioned a single problem to me directly. She never gave me any feedback at all, yet she chose to criticize me behind my back to other people. At that time, I did not blame her. I only blamed myself for not doing well enough. I felt a little hurt and discouraged, and it seemed like the reputation I had spent so many years building at work had suddenly collapsed. That was when I finally realized something important. Not everyone who stays quiet and smiles when they are around you actually respects you. Some people do not choose to talk things through directly. Instead, they choose to hurt you in places where you cannot defend yourself. And if you have ever been criticized, ever felt hurt or left out, and then turned around and blamed yourself, just like I did, then this video will help you understand what is really happening and the signs that someone may not like you and may even want to hurt you. So, you will no longer have to doubt yourself anymore. Now, let us begin together. Sign 1. They talk badly about you behind your back. Continuing the story about the project I mentioned earlier, whenever I made a mistake in some part of the work, she never gave feedback or helped me fix it. Instead, she went around criticizing me to other people in the company. That left me with no chance to explain myself or correct the problem, and I ended up turning the blame back on myself. In psychology, behavior like that often appears when someone feels their position is being threatened. Social psychology has a concept called social comparison, which means people evaluate their own value by comparing themselves to those around them. When they see you doing well, being trusted, or standing out, it can trigger insecurity inside them. Instead of improving themselves, some people choose another path, which is pulling others down. This is related to what psychologists call the ego defense mechanism, a way people protect their sense of self. When they see someone doing better than them, their self-esteem feels threatened. To soothe that discomfort, the brain pushes them to criticize or damage the other person's reputation, creating a kind of false balance that helps them feel safer about their own position. In reality, putting others down is often just a way of avoiding their own weaknesses. It is also a form of indirect aggression. Unlike direct confrontation, this approach carries less risk. They do not have to argue openly or face an immediate reaction, but they can still influence how others see you. In workplaces where evaluations often rely on secondhand information, this strategy can be surprisingly effective. So if someone talks badly about you behind your back, it does not automatically mean you are incompetent. Very often, it reflects their insecurity and defensiveness more than your actual value. Sign 2. They disappear when you need help. Going back to my project story, after I heard that people were saying I worked slowly, I went into a real crisis. My boss began questioning my ability. Coworkers started looking at me differently. I needed the person who worked with me on the project to confirm the truth so things would not be misunderstood. I sent her a message explaining that I was under pressure and needed us to talk with the boss together to clarify how the work had been divided. She saw the message but did not reply. The next day, I tried to talk to her in person, and she said she was busy. After that, she completely went silent. No follow-up, no confirmation, nothing. Her disappearance made everything harder. I was dealing with pressure at work and also felt like I had been left alone in a problem that involved both of us. When the only person who could confirm the truth stayed silent, I started doubting myself and felt like I was facing a story that everyone else had already believed. From a psychological perspective, When someone does not like you, their reaction is not always direct attack. Often it is selective withdrawal. Helping you or standing beside you when you are in trouble means investing effort in someone they already feel negatively about. In social psychology, this relates to the idea of in-group and out-group. People tend to support those they see as part of their side, but show less empathy towards someone they unconsciously place outside their group. Helping you during a crisis also carries risk, because they might become involved in the situation themselves. That is why disappearing is often a mix of two reactions. One is risk avoidance, avoiding situations that might create conflict or trouble. The other is self-preservation, protecting their image and position in front of others, or in front of people with authority. This pattern happens not only at work but also among friends, in classrooms, or in social groups, anywhere there is public judgment and group pressure. When you start noticing this pattern, you often become more withdrawn. You speak more carefully. You feel like you have to prove everything you do. You keep wondering whether you did something wrong. Slowly, you become exhausted and lose confidence, simply because you are trying to be accepted in a place that was never truly on your side. Sign 3. They leave you out of plans. I once had a group of friends that I thought I was close with. At one point, we had talked about planning a trip together, saying we would finalize it once everyone was ready. Then, one day I was scrolling through social media and suddenly saw photos of the group traveling together. The same familiar faces. The same trip we had talked about before. But one thing was different. I was not there. No message. No invitation. The feeling was strange. Like being quietly pushed out of a room you thought you still had the key to. In psychology, this relates to something called social exclusion, a form of being pushed to the edge of a group. The brain reacts strongly to exclusion because humans have a deep need to belong. Research in social psychology shows that being excluded does not just make people sad, it can also trigger stress and reduce the feeling of safety in relationships. So why do people do this when they do not like you but still act polite? Because leaving you out of plans allows them to avoid confrontation while still achieving the result they want, which is reducing your presence in the group. Instead of saying directly that they do not want you there, they quietly let you disappear. This is also a type of passive aggression. There is no open attack, just silence and exclusion. What makes it painful is the ambiguity. If someone said it directly, you would at least know how to deal with it. But when it happens in a vague way, like accidentally forgetting to invite you, it often makes you blame yourself. You might start thinking maybe you are difficult to get along with, or maybe you are annoying. In reality, the situation may simply be that you are no longer a priority in that group. If you constantly find yourself left out of plans, hearing about things last, or only finding out through someone else, it is probably not coincidence. It is a deliberate way of excluding you, and a clear sign that you are no longer high on their list of priorities. Sign 4. They are always busy, only with you. Last week at work, when lunchtime came around, I invited a few coworkers to go eat together. They smiled and said they were busy, had something to do, or maybe another time. I did not think much about it, because everyone can genuinely be busy sometimes. But that same day, when I went down to the restaurant and sat there alone, I saw those exact coworkers eating with someone else, laughing and talking comfortably. That was when I realized something important. They did have time. They just chose to spend that time with someone else, not with me. Maybe they did not like me, or maybe they simply felt our conversations were not enjoyable, so they avoided it. Psychologically, this is connected to avoidance behavior and image management. When someone does not like you, being around you can feel awkward or draining for them, so their brain naturally tries to reduce contact. At the same time, they do not want to appear rude or unfriendly, especially in social environments like workplaces, classrooms, or friend groups. So they use a safe excuse like being busy. This is called indirect refusal, a way to avoid spending time with you while still appearing polite. People also tend to distribute their time according to social reward. They naturally spend more time with those who make them feel comfortable, entertained, or socially connected. So the word busy is often not really about time. It is a signal about priority and how much someone wants to connect with you. If this happens repeatedly, you may start feeling like you are not clearly excluded from the group, but you are never naturally chosen either. Everything stays at the level of polite interaction. There is always a gentle excuse that keeps you from getting closer to their circle. The most exhausting part is that you have to read between the lines and keep guessing where you actually stand in their eyes. In the end, the sign of someone always being busy with you is often just a quiet way of saying no while protecting their own image. It is not loud or obvious, but it slowly places you on the edge, closing the door again and again with the simple word busy. Sign 5. They are never truly happy for you. One time, after saving up for a while, I finally bought a car. I shared the news during lunch. A coworker said, "Congratulations," but her smile looked forced, like a quick smirk that disappeared right away. Then she immediately asked, "Did you finance it? How much do you pay each month?" Suddenly, I went from sharing something exciting to explaining myself and defending my choice. Another time, my boss praised me for finishing a difficult task, and she was sitting right there. When I looked over, her face went kind of blank, like she was not happy. She gave a stiff smile and said, "You are so good." But her voice sounded flat and her eyes looked away, like she wanted the moment to end. It honestly felt like my happiness made her uncomfortable. And it was not just those 2 times. Whenever I had good news or a small win, she would still say the polite "congrats," but her attitude never felt warm. Sometimes it was an awkward smile, sometimes it was a cold reaction, and sometimes she would steer the conversation into reality, bringing up risks, digging into the burdens, or saying things that made my achievement feel like it was not a big deal. After a while, I stopped wanting to share around her, because every time I felt happy, I ended up having to explain more, and the joy naturally faded. Psychology calls sharing good news to get support from others capitalization. There is a type of reaction called an active destructive response, where the person responds, but in a way that shuts your excitement down or reduces the meaning of your good news. Over time, it makes you want to share less and less. When someone keeps reacting this way, specifically to you, it often means one thing: they struggle to feel happy when you are happy. This connects to social comparison and ego threat. Your success becomes a reminder that makes them feel smaller. So instead of lifting you up, they instinctively pull the moment down to calm their own discomfort. So if you have someone like that near you, share less of your good news with them. Save your wins for people who are genuinely happy for you. You do not have to prove anything or convince anyone to celebrate you. You just need to protect your feelings and choose spaces where your joy is welcomed. Sign 6. They joke about your flaws. At my company, there was a new intern who had just moved up from a rural area. He was gentle, a little shy, dressed simply. Some people in the office started making jokes like, "Small town kid in the big city, huh?" Or, "Wow, you are so country." Or, "That is so rural." Then they would laugh like it was the funniest thing in the world. When the intern reacted, they said, "Relax, it is just a joke. Why are you so serious?" I noticed those comments happened again and again. Each time, the intern would give an uncomfortable smile, trying to let it pass so he would not be seen as overly sensitive. But little by little, he talked less, participated less, and started acting like he needed to fix himself to fit other people's standards. Psychologically, this kind of joking often hides small attacks that repeat. The person saying it always has an escape route with "just kidding," while the target carries the embarrassment and insecurity. People who joke about your flaws like this often want to stay in the higher position in the room. If they do not like you, or they think you are easy to push around, they tease you in front of others to gain social advantage. The laughter becomes a stamp of who gets to speak and who has to take it. And they still get to look harmless, because they can always hide behind "I was joking." Another part is that they are testing your boundaries. If you stay quiet or force a smile, they read that as you not pushing back, so they go further. What starts as a harmless tease gets repeated, especially in front of a crowd or right on your most sensitive spot, until it becomes a label attached to you. The biggest impact is that you start adjusting yourself. You talk less, show less, avoid mistakes, avoid being different, just so you do not become the next target. Deep down, what they gain is control, because they make you shrink without ever having to say anything directly. Sign 7. They give insulting compliments. Back at that friend group meetup, I saw a close friend again. Recently, she had gained a little weight and looked a bit fuller. Normally, that would not be a big deal, but a few people in the group gave her those fake compliments like, "You are looking so filled out lately." It sounded normal on the surface, but the drawn-out tone and the up-and-down stare made it feel like criticism. Then a guy added, "With a body like that, you could probably carry a huge clay jar and still be fine." My friend went from cheerful to frozen. She lightly tugged at her shirt like she wanted to cover herself. She did not say anything back, and after that she got quiet and barely spoke. Psychologically, these fake compliments are a subtle power move. By hiding an insult inside a compliment, they put themselves in the role of the judge and push you into the role of someone who needs approval. The message underneath is that your value still depends on their evaluation. That gives them a sense of control and superiority. The motivation is often jealousy and insecurity. When they do not like you but still have to watch you shine, they feel trapped. If they praise you too much, their ego feels threatened. If they deny you completely, it looks obvious. So, an insulting compliment becomes the perfect escape. They admit a small truth, then immediately reduce it, just to soothe themselves and keep you beneath them. So if you hear a compliment and it makes you feel uncomfortable, smaller, and forced to laugh it off, that is not real praise. Real praise makes you feel more confident. Fake praise makes you confused, self-conscious, and put down in a way that is hard to respond to. Sign 8. Their body language does not match their words. At my company, there is someone who always greets me politely, like, "Hey, how have you been?" It sounds normal, but when they talk to me, they almost never look at me. Their eyes drift everywhere else, the screen, their phone, someone walking by. I will say a few sentences, and they will nod just to be polite, answer in short phrases, then quickly turn their body away like they want to end the conversation. I realized they did not like me because when they talked to others, they looked straight at them, smiled naturally, and stayed engaged. With me, they kept distance and avoided eye contact. Psychologically, this mismatch between words and body language often comes from emotional leakage. Their rational mind tries to stay polite so they do not look bad, but their automatic emotions react faster, so their real attitude slips out through their eyes, their smile, and the way they stand. In simple terms, the mouth can stay friendly, but the body cannot fake it for long. A common sign is a forced smile. The mouth smiles, but the eyes do not, and the smile disappears immediately after the greeting. Sometimes you even catch quick flashes, a colder look, a slight smirk, a brief annoyed expression, and then they put the friendly face back on. Their body also tends to angle outward. When they talk to you, their torso turns slightly away, their feet point toward an exit, their arms cross, or they place an object between you like a barrier. Small movements like adjusting clothes, touching the neck, or rubbing hands can show up too, because they feel tense while pretending to be friendly to someone they do not like. So even if your ears hear polite words, your brain still catches the avoidance signals from their body. That is why you feel like something is off. Over time, instead of feeling comfortable, you become guarded, and you start losing trust in your own instincts. Sign 9. Your instinct keeps warning you. I have a younger sister, and we have always been very close. But lately, whenever we hang out or sit down to talk, I keep having this uneasy feeling around her. She still says things like, "I always trust you," which sounds warm and reassuring, but her actions leave me feeling unsettled. Many times when I invite her to go out, she avoids it and says, "Maybe another time," and then it never happens. When I share a problem, she often jumps straight into arguing. Sometimes she picks at small mistakes or questions what I say, which makes me explain myself over and over. If I push back, she quickly says, "I am just trying to give you helpful advice." But after those conversations, my mood always drops. I feel tense, like I have to stay on guard. I talk less just to avoid being criticized again. And every time the conversation ends, I walk away feeling drained and unsupported, even though she still says friendly words. From a psychological perspective, that instinctive warning happens because your brain processes social signals using a survival mechanism. It detects possible threats first and explains them later. When a relationship sends signals that feel unsafe, your body reacts before your logical mind has time to analyze the situation. Inside the brain, systems involved in threat detection and emotional processing constantly scan small details like eye contact, response timing, tone of voice, and how someone treats you compared to others. You may not consciously notice these signals because they happen quickly, but your brain gathers them into patterns and turns them into a feeling of unease. Researchers often describe this as recognizing patterns from very small behavioral, thin slices. At the same time, when someone is trying to hide negative feelings, they often appear tense or unnatural. That tension can transfer to you through emotional contagion and unconscious mirroring, which is why you may suddenly feel tired or uncomfortable even when nothing harsh was said. Another common sign is a loss of rhythm in the interaction. In healthy relationships, conversations flow naturally and responses feel synchronized. When someone feels negatively toward you, that synchronization weakens. The result is awkward pauses, delayed responses, or smiles that do not quite match the moment. Studies on interactional synchrony show that this natural rhythm is strongly connected to feelings of trust and emotional safety. In simple terms, your instinct is reacting because your brain senses that the other person is not being genuine with you. Their words may sound fine, but their body language, tone, and reactions send signals that feel distant or cold. When those small signals repeat often enough, your brain quietly reaches a conclusion. This person may not really be on your side. That is why you feel tense or uneasy around them, even if you cannot point to one clear incident. In the end, after looking at all these signs, the most important thing to remember is this: the way someone treats you usually reflects their inner world, not your worth as a person. So do not keep trying to reshape yourself just to fit a mirror that is already cracked. Once you understand that criticism or exclusion often comes from the other person's insecurity, you no longer have to blame yourself. Just stay calm, be yourself, and invest your energy in places where you are truly appreciated. And if you have questions about psychology or situations you are dealing with in life, feel free to leave them in the comments. Next time, we can explore those questions together. Goodbye for now, and see you in the next video.